Stop being so dramatic, Rebecca. You're imagining things again. My name is Rebecca. I'm 40 years old. And for 6 months I've been the woman everyone pities but no one really sees. The reliable wife. The one who keeps the house running while her husband builds his career. The safety net everyone uses but nobody respects. Before we begin the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're listening to this story from. We post new stories every day. My husband's words echoed in my mind as I sat in our living room in Denver, staring at the envelope the private investigator had just handed me. Inside were photographs that would either confirm I was losing my mind or prove that the man I'd trusted for 15 years had been systematically destroying my sanity to hide his lies. The first time I noticed, something was wrong. It was a Tuesday evening in March. David came home 3 hours late, his shirt wrinkled in a way that didn't match his usual perfectionist standards. He worked in corporate finance, and in all our years together, I'd never seen him look disheveled after work. Traffic was terrible, he said, kissing my forehead quickly before heading straight to the shower. I stood in the kitchen, holding the dinner I'd kept warm, feeling something twist in my stomach. Denver traffic could be bad, sure, but 3 hours. I checked my phone. No accidents reported on his usual route. No construction delays. Nothing. When he came back downstairs, freshly showered and wearing clean clothes, I asked him about his day. Same old routine, he said, scrolling through his phone. Meetings, spreadsheets, more meetings. Which client were you working with today? He looked up sharply. Why are you interrogating me, Rebecca? I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking about your day. It sounds like interrogation. He set his phone down with a deliberate click. I've had a long day, and I come home to this. Can't I just have some peace? I felt myself shrinking, the way I'd been doing more and more lately. I'm sorry. I was just making conversation. Well, it doesn't feel like conversation. It feels like suspicion. He picked up his fork and started eating, ending the discussion. That night, I lay awake while David slept peacefully beside me. The twist in my stomach had grown into a knot, but I pushed it down, told myself I was overreacting, being paranoid like he said. 2 weeks later, it happened again. This time, he said he had a late meeting with a potential investor. I found out later, through a casual mention from his colleague's wife at a dinner party, that the meeting had been canceled that afternoon. When I confronted him, David didn't miss a beat. That was a different meeting, Rebecca. I had 2 scheduled that day. You're confusing things again. I'm not confusing anything. Sarah said, Sarah doesn't know my entire schedule. His voice was calm, almost pitying. You're doing that thing again, where you create our drama out of nothing. It's honestly concerning. What thing? I'm just trying to understand. This paranoid behavior. This constant need to check up on me, to question everything I say. He reached across the table and took my hand, his expression shifting to concern. Maybe you should talk to someone, honey. This anxiety isn't healthy. I pulled my hand back. I'm not anxious. I'm asking a simple question about your schedule. And I answered it. But you don't believe me. You never believe me anymore. That's the real problem here. He stood up from the table. I can't keep defending myself against accusations that exist only in your head. He left me sitting there, doubting my own memory, my own perception of reality, and that's when the pattern truly began. Over the next 3 months, the late nights became more frequent, the excuses multiplied. Business trips that seemed to materialize out of nowhere, weekend golf outings that lasted from dawn until well past dinner, phone calls he'd taken another room, his voice dropping to a murmur I couldn't quite hear. Every time I questioned him, the response was the same. I was paranoid. I was creating problems. I was letting my imagination run wild. And slowly, insidiously, I started to believe him. You're being crazy, Rebecca, became his favorite phrase. He'd say it with a sad smile, as if he felt sorry for me, as if watching my mental decline pained him. I started seeing a therapist, convinced that maybe he was right. Maybe I was losing my grip on reality. Maybe years of staying home, of making his career my priority, had left me unstable somehow. Dr. Morrison was a kind woman in her 50s who listened patiently as I described my concerns. Your husband says you're paranoid, she asked during our 3rd session. He says I imagine things that aren't there, that I create drama. And what do you think? I hesitated. I don't know anymore. I feel like I'm going crazy. I see these signs, these inconsistencies, but then he explains them and makes me feel foolish for even noticing. That must be very confusing. It is. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the problem, if I've become this suspicious, bitter person who can't trust anyone. Dr. Morrison leaned forward slightly. Rebecca, let me ask you something. Before all of this started, did you consider yourself a suspicious person? I thought about it. No, never. I've always been trusting, maybe too trusting. And when did that change? When I started noticing the inconsistencies. She nodded slowly. I want you to consider something. What if your instincts are trying to tell you something important, and someone is working very hard to make you doubt those instincts? That session planted a seed, a tiny, stubborn seed that refused to be buried no matter how many times David called me crazy. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday in late June. David said he was going to a work conference in Boulder, just an hour away, returning Sunday evening. Standard. Corporate event, he'd said. Networking, presentations, the usual. Saturday afternoon, I was at the grocery store when I saw her. The woman David had introduced to me and our families 6 months earlier as his cousin Melissa, visiting from California. She was standing in the produce section, wearing expensive workout clothes, her hair perfectly styled even for a casual shopping trip. "Melissa!" I called out, surprised. I didn't. "Know you were back in town." She turned, and for just a fraction of a second, I saw something flash across her face. Fear, guilt, but it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Rebecca, what a surprise." Her smile was bright, practiced. "Yes, I'm just here for the weekend. David didn't mention you were visiting. He's at a conference in Boulder right now, or he would have wanted to see you." Another flicker in her expression. "Oh, right, the conference. He mentioned that." Something about the way she said it made my skin prickle. Too casual, too rehearsed. "Are you staying with family?" I asked, watching her carefully. "With a friend, actually. Just a quick visit." She glanced at her phone. "I should run. I'm meeting someone for lunch. Great seeing you, Rebecca." She was gone before I could respond, her cart abandoned in the aisle. I stood there, my heart pounding, that familiar twist in my stomach returning with force. Something was wrong. Every instinct I had was screaming it, but I could already hear David's voice in my head. "You're being paranoid again, Rebecca. You're seeing conspiracies where there are none." That night, I did something I'd never done before. I checked David's credit card statement online. We had separate accounts for personal spending, but shared cards for household expenses. I told myself I was just reviewing our budget, but I knew I was lying to myself. What I found made my hands shake. Charges from a hotel in downtown Denver. The Riverside Luxury Suites. Not Boulder, Denver. And not just from this weekend. Multiple charges over the past 3 months. Always on nights he'd claimed to be working late or traveling for business. I sat at the kitchen table until 3 and the morning dawns, staring at those charges, my mind racing. This was proof, wasn't it? Concrete evidence that something was happening. But even as I looked at it, I could hear his explanations forming. He'd stayed in Denver for a meeting that ran late. The Boulder hotel was full, so the company booked him in Denver instead. There were a dozen reasonable explanations, except I knew there weren't. Not anymore. Sunday evening, David came. Home with a conference tote bag and stories about boring presentations. He kissed me, asked about my weekend, and settled onto the couch to watch the news as if everything was perfectly normal. I said nothing about the credit card charges, nothing about seeing Melissa at the grocery store. I just watched him, this man I'd built my life around, and realized I didn't know him at all. Monday morning, after David left for work, I made a phone call that would change everything. "Harper Investigations," a woman's voice answered. My hand trembled as I held the phone. "I need to hire a private investigator." The woman's voice was professional, kind. "I understand. Can you tell me a bit about what you need help with?" "My husband. I think he's lying to me about where he goes, who he's with. I have credit card statements that don't match his stories. But every time I try to talk to him about it, he makes me feel like I'm losing my mind." "You're not losing your mind," she said firmly. That's a very common tactic. We see it all the time. Can you come in this afternoon? 3 hours later, I sat across from Janet Harper, a former police detective who now ran her own investigation firm. She was in her mid-50s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put me at ease. "Tell me everything," she said, pen poised over her notepad. I talked for an hour, every late night, every inconsistency, every time David had made me doubt myself. I showed her the credit card statements, told her about Melissa at the grocery store, described the pattern I'd been seeing for months. Janet listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. "How long have you been married?" 15 years. And this behavior started 6 months ago. About that, yes. She nodded. "Rebecca, I'm going to be direct with you. Based on what you've told me, I believe your husband is having an affair. The hotel charges, the late nights, the gaslighting. These are textbook signs. But I understand you need proof. You need to know for certain before you can move forward. Hearing someone validate my suspicions after months of being told I was crazy nearly broke me. Tears streamed down my face. I thought I was going insane. I whispered. You're not. You're seeing clearly. And someone is working very hard to make you doubt that clarity. That's called gaslighting, and it's a form of psychological abuse. The word abuse hit me like a punch. I'd never thought of it that way. What do I do now? I asked. You let me gather evidence. You go home, and you act normal. Don't confront him. Don't let him know you suspect anything. Can you do that? I wiped my eyes and nodded. Yes, I can do that. Good. Give me 2 weeks. I'll have your answers. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I woke up next to David every morning and pretended everything was fine. I made his coffee, asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, and every night, I wondered who he was really texting when, he said it was work, where he was really going when he said he had late meetings. But I didn't ask. I didn't question. I played the role of the trusting wife perfectly. Janet called me on a Thursday afternoon, 13 days after I'd hired her. Can you come to my office? I have the report ready. My heart hammered as I drove across town. This was it, the moment of truth. Either I was about to have my worst fears confirmed, or I was about to discover I really had been paranoid all along. Janet's expression when I walked into her office told me everything before she even opened the folder on her desk. I'm sorry, Rebecca, she said quietly, but you were right. She slid the folder across to me. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. David walking into the Riverside luxury suites. David in the hotel restaurant, sitting across from Melissa. David and Melissa in the lobby, his hand on the small of her back. David and Melissa entering a room together, the door closing behind them. The timestamps showed multiple dates, multiple visits, an ongoing, deliberate pattern of deception. She's not his cousin, is she? I asked, my voice hollow. No, her name is Melissa Torres. She's a marketing consultant his company hired 8 months ago. According to my investigation, they've been involved for approximately 6 months. 6 months. The exact timeline when David had started calling me paranoid. There's more, Janet said gently. I have audio recordings of them together in public spaces, restaurants, the hotel bar. If you want to hear them, I can play them. But I warn you, it might be difficult. Play them. She pressed a button on her computer. David's voice filled the room, warm and affectionate in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I hate lying to her, but what choice do I have? If I tell Rebecca the truth now, she'll take everything. The house, half my retirement. I can't afford that yet. Melissa's voice responded. How much longer? My lawyer says another year, maybe 18 months. I need to make sure my assets are protected first. Then I can file for the separation. And you're sure she doesn't suspect anything? David laughed. Actually laughed. Rebecca, no. I've got her so convinced she's paranoid that she questions her own memories. It's perfect. She sees evidence and talks herself out of it because she thinks she's crazy. I couldn't ask for a better situation. Janet stopped the recording. I sat in silence, the words echoing in my mind. He'd been planning this, manipulating me, making me doubt my own sanity while he strategically positioned himself for a favorable outcome. What do I do now? I asked. Janet's expression hardened. Now. Now you stop being the woman he thinks you are. Now you take control of this situation. Do you have a good lawyer? No. I have someone I trust. Someone who specializes in cases like this. She wrote down a name and number. Call her today. Show her everything in this folder. And Rebecca, yes. Don't tell your husband anything until you've talked to the lawyer. Don't confront him. Don't let him know you know. The element of surprise is your greatest advantage right now. I drove home in a daze, the folder of evidence sitting on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to explode. When I walked through the door, David was already home, making himself a drink in the kitchen. Hey, honey, he said cheerfully. How was your day? I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger, a calculated, manipulative stranger who'd spent 6 months systematically destroying my confidence to cover his tracks. Fine, I said, my voice steady. Just ran some errands. How about you? Same old, same old. Oh, I have to work late tomorrow night. Big presentation on Friday. I smiled. Actually smiled. No problem. I'll save you dinner. He kissed my cheek, and I didn't flinch. I just stood there, playing my role, while inside I was already planning his downfall. That night, after David fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with the folder open on my lap, looking through the photographs again. This time, I wasn't crying. This time, I was calculating. He thought he'd broken me, thought he'd made me so uncertain of my own perception that I'd never fight back. He'd called me crazy and paranoid until I almost believed him. But what he didn't realize was that every time he'd made me doubt myself, he'd also bought me time. Time to gather evidence. Time to prepare. Time to build a case so airtight he wouldn't be able to talk his way out of it. Tomorrow, I'd call the lawyer. I'd start protecting my own assets, planning my own strategy. And when the time was right, when everything was in place, I'd show him these photographs and watch his carefully constructed lies crumble around him. Because the thing about calling someone paranoid is that eventually, you start to believe they'll never catch you. You get comfortable, careless, confident, and that confidence was going to be David's biggest mistake. The lawyer's office was in a sleek building downtown, all glass and modern art. Catherine Brennan was exactly what Janet had promised. Sharp, experienced, and completely unimpressed by the kind of manipulation David had been pulling. She was in her early 50s, with silver hair cut in a precise bob and eyes that seemed to see right through any pretense. When I sat down across from her desk and opened the folder of photographs, she barely glanced at them before looking back at me. How long have you known? She asked. 2 days, but I've suspected for 6 months. And you haven't confronted him? No. The investigator told me not to. Catherine smiled. The first warmth I'd seen from her. Smart woman, both of you. Tell me everything from the beginning. Not just about the affair, about your marriage, your finances, everything. So I did. I told her about meeting David 17 years ago at a friend's birthday party. He'd been charming, successful, ambitious. We'd dated for 2 years before getting married in a small ceremony in the mountains. Those first years had been good. Really good. When did things change? Catherine asked, taking notes. Slowly. After about 5 years, he started working longer hours. We talked about having children, but he kept saying the timing wasn't right. His career was taking off, and he needed to focus. I understood. I'd left my job in marketing to support his advancement, to be the partner who could host dinners and attend company events. You gave up your career? He said it was temporary, that once he made partner, we'd reassess. But partner turned into senior partner, and senior partner turned into department head. There was always another promotion, another reason to wait. Catherine's pen moved across her notepad. What about finances? Joint accounts. We have a joint checking account for household expenses. Everything. Else is separate. He always said it was cleaner that way, less complicated. His salary goes into his personal account, and he transfers money to the joint account for bills and groceries. How much does he transfer? I felt my face flush. $3,000 a month. And his annual salary? Around $250,000. Catherine's expression didn't change, but I saw her pen press harder against the paper. So he earns approximately $20,000 a month after taxes. Transfers $3,000 to you for household expenses. and keeps $17,000 for himself. Hearing it laid out like that made my stomach turn. He said he was investing it, building our retirement. Did he show you these investments? No, I trusted him. Rebecca, I'm not judging you. I'm assessing the situation. Do you know what accounts he has? What assets are in his, name? Our house is in both names. Beyond that, I don't know. He handled all the financial planning. Catherine sat back in her chair. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get copies of every financial document we can access legally. Bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds. I have a forensic accountant who specializes in this. Second, we're going to document everything about this affair with timestamps and evidence. Third, you're going to continue acting completely normal while we build your case. How long will that take? 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe less if your husband gets careless. But Rebecca, I need you to understand something. Colorado is a no-fault divorce state. The affair itself won't necessarily impact the settlement. What will impact it is if he's been hiding assets, manipulating finances, or engaging in economic abuse. Economic abuse. Controlling your access to money, keeping you financially dependent, hiding assets while claiming poverty. Based on what you've told me, there are several red flags. The separate accounts, the minimal household contribution compared to his income, the fact that you have no visibility into your family's true financial picture. I'd never thought of it that way. I just accepted it as how we did things. What happens if we find hidden assets? Then we use that as leverage. Colorado law requires full financial disclosure in divorce proceedings. If he's been dishonest, it strengthens your position significantly. Now, I need to ask you something difficult. Is there any chance he knows you're investigating? No. I've been very careful. Has your behavior changed at all? Has he commented on anything? I thought about the past 2 days. I'd been playing the perfect wife, but had I slipped anywhere? Last night, he mentioned I seemed quiet. I told him I was tired, and he accepted that. Yes. He barely looked up from his phone. Catherine nodded. Good. Maintain that normalcy. Don't do anything out of your usual routine. Don't hire moving companies. Don't open new bank accounts. Don't confide in friends who might accidentally say something. For the next few weeks, you're an actress playing the role of the oblivious wife. I can do that. I've been doing it for 6 months already. The difference is now you know the truth, and that makes it harder. The anger, the betrayal, it's going to want to come out. You'll want to confront him, to throw the evidence in his face. Don't. Every day you wait is another day we gather evidence and strengthen your position. She pulled out a contract. My retainer is $5,000. I know that might seem like a lot. I have it. I'd been saving money from the household account for years. Small amounts that David never noticed. Birthday money from my parents. The occasional check from my grandmother. It had accumulated in a separate account I'd opened years ago, back when I still worked. $23,000 that David didn't know existed. Catherine looked surprised. Most women in your situation don't have access to that kind of cash. I'm not most women. For the first time, she smiled fully. No, I don't think you are. Welcome to your new life, Rebecca. It's going to be difficult, but I promise you this. When we're done, he won't know what hit him. I signed the contract and wrote the check. Walking out of that office, I felt different, stronger. The woman who'd walked in had been a victim, confused and hurt. The woman walking out was something else entirely. That evening, David came home early for once. He was in a good mood, whistling as he came through the door. Hey, beautiful. Want to go out for dinner? That Italian place you love? I looked at him. This man who'd spent the morning with his mistress according to the tracker Janet had placed on his car, and smiled. That sounds wonderful. At the restaurant, David was attentive in a way he hadn't been in months. He asked about my day, laughed at my stories, reached across the table to hold my hand. To anyone watching, we looked like a couple in love. I've been thinking, he said over dessert. We should take a trip. Just the two of us. Maybe that resort in Cabo you've always wanted to visit. Really? You always said you were too busy. I know, and, I'm sorry about that. I've been working too much, not making enough time for us. I want to fix that. The lies came so smoothly, so practiced. I wondered if Melissa knew about this dinner, about his sudden interest in repairing our marriage. Or was she just another part of the game, a distraction while he repositioned his assets? That would be amazing, I said, squeezing his hand. When were you thinking? Maybe next month. I'll have my assistant look at dates. We both knew he'd never book that trip, but I played along, talking about activities and restaurants, while mentally calculating how much evidence Catherine's team could gather in the next 4 weeks. When we got home, David pulled me close in the kitchen. I love you, Rebecca. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. I love you too, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. That night, he reached for me in bed. For a moment, I froze. How could I do this, knowing what I knew? But then I remembered Catherine's words. You're an actress playing a role, and I needed this performance to be flawless. Afterward, as David slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. This was my life now, pretending, performing, waiting for the moment when I could finally stop. The next morning, I started my own investigation. While David was at work, I went through the house methodically. His office was usually locked, but I'd found the key years ago, hidden in his sock drawer. He'd never known I had a copy. Inside, his filing cabinets were meticulously organized. Tax returns, investment statements, property documents. I photographed everything with my phone, sending the images directly to Catherine's secure email. What I found shocked me. Multiple investment accounts I'd never heard of. A rental property in Boulder listed only in his name. Stock portfolios worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. While I'd been living on $3,000 a month, David had been building a financial empire. But it was the folder labeled estate planning that made my hands shake. Inside was a will, dated 3 years ago, leaving everything to his sister Margaret in the event of his passing. Not to me, his wife, his partner, to his sister. I photographed that too, then carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. That afternoon, Catherine called. Rebecca, the documents you sent are very interesting. Our forensic accountant is reviewing them now, but preliminary analysis suggests your husband has been systematically moving assets into his name only for at least 5 years. There's a rental property I never knew about. We found that. We also found what looks like a recently opened offshore account. Small transfers, but regular. It appears he's been preparing for this divorce long before the affair started. The words hit me like a physical blow. How long? Based on the pattern, at least 3 years. The affair might be recent, but the financial manipulation goes back much further. 3 years. 3 years of David planning to leave while I'd been planning our future. While I'd been the devoted wife, he'd been the calculating husband, positioning himself to walk away with everything. There's something else, Catherine continued. The recordings from the investigator mention his lawyer. We need to know who that is. How do I find out? Does he keep a calendar, appointment books? Everything's on his phone. Then we wait. He'll slip up eventually. They always do. But I didn't want to wait. That night, while David was in the shower, I picked up his phone. I knew his passcode. He'd never changed it from our wedding anniversary. Arrogant or sentimental. At this point, I didn't know which. His calendar was full of meetings, most of them legitimate, but there, scheduled for Friday afternoon. RB, 3 p.m. The location was listed as an office building downtown. RB, probably. His lawyer's initials. I quickly took a photo of the calendar entry, and several others, then put the phone back exactly where he'd left it. Friday came. David left for work as usual, kissing me goodbye and reminding me he had a late meeting. Of course he did. According to his real schedule, he was meeting Melissa at the hotel at 7, but at 3, he had an appointment I wasn't supposed to know about. I waited until 2:30, then drove downtown. The building from his calendar was a professional complex housing several law firms. I parked across the street and watched. At 2:50, David's car pulled into the garage. At 3:15, he emerged and got back in his car. I waited 5 minutes, then walked into the building. The directory listed 4 law firms. I pulled out my phone and called Catherine. I need you to find out which of these firms has a lawyer. With the initials RB, I said, reading off the names. Give me 10 minutes. I waited in my car, watching people come and go. Catherine called back in 8. Richard Bradley and Associates, specializes in divorce and asset protection. And Rebecca, he's known for aggressive tactics and hidden asset strategies. Your husband hired one of the best. Then we need to be better. We will be. Go home. Act normal. We have what we need. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in deception. David continued his affair, thinking I knew nothing. I continued my investigation, documenting everything. His late nights, his secret phone calls, his careful manipulation of our conversations. But I also started preparing in other ways. I transferred my secret savings to a new account at a different bank. I collected copies of every important document: birth, certificates, marriage license, the deed to our house. I compiled a list of everything we owned, from furniture to artwork to the expensive wine collection David had spent years building. I also started taking care of myself. I joined a gym, started eating better, got my hair done. Not because I wanted to look good for David, but because I was preparing for a war, and warriors needed to be strong. David noticed. You look great. Honey, what's the occasion? No occasion. Just taking better care of myself. Well, it shows. That new dress is beautiful on you. He didn't know I'd bought it with money from my secret account, that I was building a wardrobe for my new life, one outfit at a time. The affair continued. According to Janet's updates, David and Melissa were meeting 3 times a week now. They'd gotten careless, going to restaurants where they might be seen. Love made people stupid, or maybe it was arrogance. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. It was a Tuesday evening, and David was supposedly working late. I was in the living room reading when his phone, left charging on the kitchen counter, buzzed with a text. I walked over and looked at the screen. It was from a contact labeled MT Work. Missing you already? Can't wait for this weekend? Love you. I picked up the phone. The passcode still worked. Inside were months of messages, love notes, plans, intimate conversations, photos I couldn't look at without feeling sick. But there was also something else. A conversation from 2 weeks ago. When are you going to tell her? Melissa had written. Soon. My lawyer says I need to wait until after the property transfer goes through. Another month, maybe 2. Then I'll file. I'm tired of hiding, David. I know, baby. But we have to be smart about this. If Rebecca gets suspicious now, she could freeze assets, make everything complicated. Just a little longer, and then we can be together openly. What if she finds out before you're ready? She won't. Trust me, I've got her so convinced she's paranoid that she questions her own memory. Rebecca sees what I want her to see. Nothing more. I photographed the entire conversation. He sent it to Catherine, then deleted the evidence that I'd accessed his phone. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. Inside, I was screaming, but outside, I was ice. When David came home an hour later, I was exactly where he'd left me, reading in the living room. Hey, honey, sorry I'm late. Crazy day. No problem. There's leftover chicken in the fridge. He kissed the top of my head and headed to the kitchen, completely unaware that I'd just documented the final piece of evidence we needed. The next morning, Catherine called with news. The property transfer he mentioned in the texts. We found it. He's trying to move the Boulder rental into his sister's name. If that goes through before we file, proving it's a marital asset becomes much harder. Can we stop it? We can, but it means moving up our timeline. Are you ready? I thought about the past 6 months. The gaslighting, the lies, the systematic destruction of my confidence and self-worth. I thought about David's smug certainty that I'd never catch him, that I was too broken to fight back. I'm ready. Then here's what we're going to do. Next week, David has a business trip scheduled to Seattle, correct? Yes. 3 days. Perfect. While he's gone, we'll file for divorce and get a restraining order freezing all assets. When he lands, he'll be served with papers. He won't see it coming. What about the house? You'll stay there. Under Colorado law, you have the right to remain in the marital home during proceedings. He'll have to find somewhere else to live. Somewhere else. Like maybe with Melissa, whose carefully constructed image as the other woman was about to become very public knowledge. There's one more thing, I said. His family. They adore him. They're going to take his side. Let them. We have evidence, documentation, proof of financial manipulation, emotional abuse, and infidelity. What they believe doesn't matter. What matters is what we can prove in court. That weekend, David was particularly affectionate. We went to dinner with his sister Margaret and her husband Tom. Margaret had always treated me kindly, but distantly, as if I were a temporary addition to the family, rather than a permanent member. Now I knew why. She was in on it. The will leaving everything to her. The property transfer. She'd been helping David prepare to leave me. "Rebecca, you look wonderful," she said over appetizers. "Doesn't she look wonderful, David?" "She always looks wonderful," David said, taking my hand. I smiled at both of them. These two people who'd been plotting my financial devastation and played my role perfectly. The loving wife, the devoted sister-in-law, the woman too naive to see what was happening right in front of her. After dinner, in the car, David reached over and squeezed my knee. "I'm really glad we did this. Family is important." "It is," I agreed, thinking about the family I was about to lose. His parents, who I'd grown to love. His younger brother, who'd always made me laugh at holiday gatherings. All of them were going to hate me when this came out, but that was the price of truth, and I was willing to pay it. Monday came. David left for Seattle early in the morning, kissing me goodbye and promising to call when he landed. "I'll miss you," he said. "I'll miss you too." As soon as his car disappeared down the street, I called Catherine. "He's gone. I'm ready." "Then let's begin." Let's take a short pause in the story to ask you, are you enjoying this story so far? If you are, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We post new stories every day. Thank you. Now, let's continue. Catherine's office was packed with people when I arrived Monday morning. Her associate, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana, was organizing documents into neat stacks. The forensic accountant, Marcus, had spreadsheets covering an entire table, and Janet Harper sat in the corner, reviewing her investigation files one last time. "Are you ready for this?" Catherine asked me. I looked around at the evidence of my husband's betrayal spread across the room. Months of lies, documented and categorized. Years of financial manipulation, traced and proven. A carefully constructed double life, exposed in painful detail. I'm ready. Then, let's file. The next 4 hours were a blur of signatures and legal documents. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Motion to freeze assets. Request for temporary restraining order. Emergency motion to prevent property transfer. Each signature felt like another step away from the woman I'd been, and towards someone I didn't quite recognize yet. "The process server will deliver the papers when David lands in Seattle," Catherine explained. "He'll be at the airport, probably texting Melissa about how glad he is to be away, and then he'll be served in public, where he can't make a scene or disappear. What happens after that? He'll call you, probably angry, definitely defensive. He'll try to spin this, to make you the villain. You need to be prepared for that." I am, but I wasn't. Not really. You can never truly prepare for the moment your marriage officially ends, no matter how dead it was long before the paperwork. By 3 p.m, everything was filed. The court had granted the temporary restraining order, freezing all of David's accounts and preventing any asset transfers. The property in Boulder was locked down. The offshore account was flagged. Every financial move he'd made in preparation for his planned divorce was suddenly paralyzed. "Now we wait," Catherine said. I went in, home to the house that was suddenly, legally, mine to occupy. David's things were still everywhere. His coffee mug in the sink, his jacket on the coat rack, his slippers by the bed, evidence of a life we'd shared that had been a lie for longer than I wanted to calculate. I stood in the kitchen, looking around at 15 years of accumulated memories, and felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, just a cold, clear certainty that this was right. My phone rang at 4:30. David's flight had landed 20 minutes ago. It rang again at 4:45, and again at 4:50. I let it go to voicemail each time, following Catherine's instructions. Don't engage, don't explain. Let him panic. At 5, he started texting. "What the hell is this? Call me right now. You can't do this. We need to talk. Rebecca, answer your phone." I blocked his number, then called Catherine. He knows. Good. Now comes the hard part. He's going to try every manipulation tactic he has. He'll be angry, then apologetic. He'll blame you, then beg for forgiveness. He might even show up at the house. If he does, don't let him in. Call the police if you need to. Will he really come here? Men like David don't like losing control. And right now, he's lost all of it. Yes, he'll come. She was right. At 7 that evening, David's rental car pulled into the driveway. I watched from the window as he got out, his face red with anger even from a distance. He pounded on the door. "Rebecca, open this door right now." I stood in the hallway, my phone in my hand with the emergency number ready, and said nothing. "I know you're in there. We need to talk about this. You can't just freeze my accounts and kick me out of my own house." Your house, I thought. Not our house. Your house. Even now, even caught, his true feelings slipped out. "Rebecca, please, let me explain. Whatever you think happened, you're wrong. You're confused again, jumping to conclusions." There it was, the gaslighting. Even now, served with divorce papers and caught in documented lies, he was trying to make me doubt reality. "I have proof," I called through the door. "Photos, recordings, financial documents. Your lawyer's name is Richard Bradley. Your mistress is Melissa Torres. You've been planning this divorce for 3 years while telling me I was paranoid." Silence. Then, "Who told you that? Someone's lying to you, setting me up." "Rebecca, you have to believe me. I believe the evidence, and so will the judge. You're making a huge mistake. If you do this, if you go through with this divorce, you'll regret it. I'll make sure of it." And there was the real David, not the charming husband or the concerned partner, the man who'd threatened me when he realized he couldn't manipulate me anymore. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. You're violating the restraining order by being here." More silence. Then I heard his footsteps retreating, the car door slamming, the engine starting. I watched from the window as, he drove away, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly I could see his knuckles from inside the house. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This isn't over, Rebecca. You have no idea what you've started." I forwarded it to Catherine with a simple message. "He's making threats." She responded immediately. "Document everything. Every call, every text, every contact. It all helps our case." That night, I slept, better than I had in months. The house felt different without David's presence. Lighter somehow, as if the walls themselves were relieved to stop holding the weight of his lies. The next morning, Margaret called. I'd been expecting it. "Rebecca, what have you done?" "David is devastated. He says you've completely lost your mind, that you're making insane accusations." "Did he mention Melissa Torres?" "Who?" "His mistress. The woman he introduced to us as his cousin. The woman he's been seeing at the Riverside luxury suites for 6 months, while telling me I was paranoid. That's ridiculous. David would never—" "I have photographs. Margaret. Timestamps. Hotel receipts. Recorded conversations where he discusses protecting his assets before filing for divorce. Your name comes up too. Actually, something about transferring property into your name to hide it. From me." The silence on the other end was deafening. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing," Margaret finally said, her voice cold. "But you're destroying this family. David destroyed this family. I'm just refusing to go down with it." She hung up. Within an hour, I had angry voicemails from David's mother and his brother, all of them defending him, all of them calling me unstable, vindictive, cruel. I deleted them, all, and sent the recordings to Catherine. "His family is circling the wagons," I told her. "Let them. In a few weeks, when the evidence becomes public record, they'll know the truth. Until then, protect yourself. Block anyone who harasses you." That afternoon, I went through the house and packed up David's belongings. His clothes, his toiletries, his precious wine collection. Everything went into boxes that I stacked in the garage. If he wanted his things, he could arrange to pick them up with a police escort. As I worked, I found things I'd forgotten about. Our wedding album, filled with photos of a day that felt like it belonged to different people. Love letters he'd written during our engagement, full of promises he'd never kept. A framed photo of us on vacation in Hawaii, both of us smiling at the camera with no idea how this would end. I threw them, all in the trash. That evening, Catherine called with news. "Melissa Torres just hired a lawyer. David's going to try to say the affair started after your separation, not before. He's going to claim you drove him away with your paranoid behavior. But we have proof." "We do. But he's going to fight dirty. Are you prepared for that?" "What else can he do? He can lie about you, claim you were unstable, emotionally abusive, unfaithful yourself. He can try to paint himself as the victim and you as the villain. Men like David are very good at playing the victim when they've been caught. Let him try. I have 6 months of therapy records with Dr. Morrison documenting his gaslighting. I have financial records showing his control of our money. I have his own recorded words admitting to the manipulation. You're right, but I need you to understand that this is going to get ugly. His family will testify for him. Melissa might claim you're harassing her. David will use every resource he has to win. So will I. The next few days were a storm of legal motions and counter-motions. David filed for an emergency hearing to unfreeze his accounts, claiming I was being vindictive and preventing him from meeting his basic needs. Catherine responded with documentation showing he had access to significant cash reserves I hadn't known about. He filed a motion claiming I'd changed the locks illegally. Catherine provided proof that under Colorado law, I had every right to secure the marital home. He claimed I was preventing him from retrieving his belongings. I submitted photos of the neatly packed boxes in the garage, along with my attorney's repeated offers to arrange a supervised pickup. Each motion he filed, we countered. Each lie he told, we disproved. It was exhausting and infuriating, watching him twist reality to fit his narrative. But then something unexpected happened. Janet called me on Thursday morning. "Rebecca, you need to see this. I'm sending you a link." I opened the email. It was a screenshot from a social media post. Melissa Torres, posting a photo of herself with the caption, "When people try to destroy your happiness, but you know, the truth. Real love always wins." The comments were full of supportive messages from people who had no idea she was talking about an affair with a married man. "She's painting herself as the victim," Janet said, the wronged girlfriend fighting against the crazy wife. I felt rage rise in my throat. This woman, who'd knowingly participated in destroying my marriage, was now playing innocent online. "Can we use this?" I asked. "Absolutely. It establishes that the relationship is ongoing and public. It contradicts David's claim that this started after separation. Screenshot everything." I did. I also looked through Melissa's social media history and found something interesting. Photos from months ago. Carefully cropped to hide David, but showing locations I recognized from the investigators' reports. The hotel restaurant, a hiking trail where they'd been. Photographed together, a wine bar downtown. She'd been documenting their affair in plain sight, just careful enough to avoid direct evidence. But I was more careful. That weekend was the hardest. Saturday would have been our 16th wedding anniversary. David and I had planned to celebrate in the mountains, a cabin retreat he'd suggested months ago. Instead, I spent the day sorting through financial documents with Catherine's accountant, uncovering more hidden assets, a storage unit full of expensive artwork, a cryptocurrency account worth $50,000, a boat registered in his sister's name that he'd purchased with marital funds. Every discovery was another betrayal, another lie, another piece of the elaborate scheme he'd constructed to leave me with nothing. "How did I not see this?" I asked Marcus as we reviewed the spreadsheets. "Because he was very careful. And because you trusted him. Trust isn't stupidity, Rebecca. It's what you're supposed to have in a marriage. I feel like such a fool." "Don't. You're not the one who should feel foolish. He is. Because all this careful planning and manipulation, it's going to cost him far more than if he'd just been honest from the start." By Sunday evening, we had a complete financial picture. David had hidden approximately $400,000 in assets. When added to what we already knew about, our marital estate was worth over $1 million. Half of that was mine. But more importantly, his attempt to hide it gave us leverage. Financial fraud in divorce proceedings came with penalties. The judge would not look kindly on his deception. Monday morning, we filed an amended petition, including all the newly discovered assets. We also filed for sanctions against David for failure to disclose. His lawyer called Catherine within an hour. "We need to talk about settlement." "I'm listening," Catherine said, putting him on speaker so I could hear. "My client is willing to offer a generous settlement. 60-40 split, with him retaining the Boulder property and the primary residence going to Mrs. Thornton." "That's not even remotely acceptable," Catherine said, calmly. "Your client attempted to hide $500,000 in assets, emotionally abused my client for months, and committed adultery while planning his exit strategy. We're going to trial. and we're going to ask for $70-30, full reimbursement for my client's legal fees, and alimony. That's excessive. What's excessive is your client's behavior. I suggest you review the evidence we've compiled and come back with a realistic offer. Otherwise, I'll see you in court, where all of this becomes public record. The threat of publicity worked. 2 days later, they came back with a better offer. 55-45 split. David would buy me out of the house at full market value. He'd pay my legal fees and 3 years of alimony while I rebuilt my career. What do you think? Catherine asked me. I thought about David's face when he'd pounded on the door, demanding to be let in. I thought about his threats, his family's harassment, his attempt to paint me as unstable. I think we can do better. So do I. But Rebecca, trials are expensive and emotionally draining. If we can settle for something close to what you deserve without putting you through that, it might be worth considering. I want 70-30. I want the house. I want 5 years of alimony. And I want him to admit me in writing to the affair and the financial manipulation. Catherine smiled. Then that's what we'll fight for. The negotiations continued. Back and forth, offer and counter-offer. David tried to play hardball, threatening to drag this out for years if necessary. But we had something he didn't. Patience and evidence. So much evidence. Finally, 3 weeks after I'd filed for divorce, his lawyer called with a final offer. 60-40 split of all assets, with me keeping the house. 4 years of alimony at $3,500 per month, full reimbursement of my legal fees, and a signed statement acknowledging the affair and agreeing not to contest any of the findings. It's not everything you wanted, Catherine said, but it's close, and it means this ends now, rather than dragging on for months. I thought about it. 60-40 wasn't 70-30. 4 years wasn't 5, but it was enough to rebuild my life, enough to go back to school or start a business, enough to prove that David's attempt to leave me with nothing had failed spectacularly. I'll take it, but I want one more thing added. What? I want Melissa Torres's name in the acknowledgement. I want it on record exactly who he had the affair with, so she can't pretend to be the innocent victim anymore. Catherine's smile was fierce. I'll make it happen. It did. By Friday afternoon, we had a signed settlement agreement. David Michael Thornton acknowledged his affair with Melissa Ann Torres. He acknowledged hiding assets during the marriage. He acknowledged that the divorce was his fault, not mine. It was all there, in black and white, signed and notarized. How do you feel? Catherine asked as we reviewed the final documents. We're like I can breathe again. That weekend, David came to pick up his belongings. He arrived with a moving truck and his brother, both of them grim-faced and silent. I watched from inside as they loaded boxes, making sure they didn't take anything that wasn't his. When they finished, David stood at the door, looking like he wanted to say something. Don't, I said. We're done. Whatever you have to say, save it for someone who cares. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did. You meant to destroy me so completely that I wouldn't fight back when you left. The only thing you didn't mean was to get caught. He opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away. I closed the door on my marriage and on the man who'd tried to gaslight me into doubting my own reality. The man who'd called me crazy and paranoid while systematically stealing from me and planning his escape. The next chapter of my life was about to begin, and this time, I was writing it myself. The house felt different after David left. Not empty, exactly, but quiet, in a way it hadn't been in years. I walked through the rooms that first night alone, really alone, and noticed things I'd stopped seeing. The worn spot on the couch where David always sat, the bare patch on the wall where his college diploma had hung, the space in the closet that used to hold his suits, evidence of subtraction, of removal, of something toxic finally being extracted. I stood in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made his coffee every morning for 15 years, and felt something unexpected. Relief. Not happiness yet, not joy, but a deep, bone-level relief that the performance was over. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Morrison, my therapist. I heard about the divorce filing. How are you doing? Do you need to schedule an emergency session? I smiled. Even now, People expected me to be falling apart, the abandoned wife, devastated and broken. I'm okay, I typed back. Actually, better than okay. Can we schedule a regular appointment next week? Her response came quickly. Of course. I'm proud of you, Rebecca. What you did took tremendous courage. Courage. I'd never thought of it that way. It had felt more like survival, like finally choosing to stop drowning. That week, I started rebuilding. Small steps at first. I repainted the bedroom, covering the soft blue David had chosen with a warm sage green I'd always wanted. I rearranged the furniture, bought new sheets, replaced the artwork. By the time I finished, nothing remained of the space we'd shared. I also started looking for work, 15 years away from... Marketing meant my skills were outdated, but not obsolete. I updated my resume, reached out to old colleagues, started taking online courses in digital marketing and social media strategy, and I waited for David to make his next move, because men like David always made a next move. It came 2 weeks after he'd picked up his belongings. I was at the grocery store when I saw Melissa Torres in the parking lot. She was getting out of a car I didn't recognize, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked toward me. Rebecca, wait, please. I need to talk to you. Every instinct told me to leave, to get in my car and drive away without engaging. But something in her voice, some crack in her usually polished facade, made me stop. What do you want? I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For the affair. For the pain I caused you. For my part in all of this. I studied her face. She looked tired, older than the vibrant woman in the investigator's photographs. Reality, it seemed, had not been kind to her fantasy. Why now? Why apologize now? Because I've been where you are. Not exactly the same, but close enough. My ex-husband cheated on me with a coworker. I know what it feels like to be betrayed. To have your reality questioned, to feel like you're losing your mind. And yet you did the same thing to me. I know. That's what makes it worse. I knew better, and I did it anyway. She took off her sunglasses, and I saw dark circles under her eyes. David told me you were separated, that the marriage was over in everything but paperwork, that you'd both moved on but were waiting for the right time to make it official, and you believed him. I wanted to. He was charming and successful, and paid attention to me in a way my ex never did. By the time I realized he was lying, I was already involved, already complicit. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. Nothing excuses it. But I want you to know that the version of you David described doesn't match the woman I'm looking at. He said you were unstable, paranoid, impossible to live with. You're none of those things, are you? No, I'm not. I didn't think so. The woman he described wouldn't have built the case you built, wouldn't have had the clarity and strength to document everything and fight back. That takes a very stable, very rational mind. I felt something shift in my chest. Validation from an unexpected source. Why are you telling me this? Because David is planning something. He's furious about the settlement, about being caught eyes, about losing control. He's been making calls, talking to lawyers about how to get revenge. I heard him on the phone last night, talking about finding ways to discredit you, to paint you as vindictive and mentally unwell. Let him try. The settlement is signed. The divorce is final in 6 weeks. I know, but Rebecca, you need to understand something about David that I didn't see until too late. He doesn't accept defeat, ever. If he can't win legitimately, he'll try to destroy you another way. What way? I don't know yet, but I wanted to warn you. To tell you to be careful, to document everything, to not let your guard down just because the legal battle is over. She put her sunglasses back on, preparing to leave. Melissa, wait, why are you helping me? What's in it for you? She smiled sadly. Nothing. I'm not helping you for me. I'm helping you because it's the right thing to do. And I should have done the right thing 6 months ago. Also, because David showed me who he really is, and I don't like that person very much. You're not with him anymore. No, I ended it last week. Turns out, when a man lies to his wife, he also lies to his mistress. He told me he was getting divorced. Then I found out he was trying to hide assets to avoid giving you what you deserved. If he'd do that to you after 15 years, what would he do to me after 6 months? She walked to her car, then turned back one more time. For what it's worth, I am sorry. You deserved better. We both did. I watched her drive away, processing the conversation. David was planning something. Of course he was. The settlement had backed him into a corner, and cornered animals were the most dangerous. I called Catherine. As soon as I got home, Melissa Torres just warned me that David is planning some kind of retaliation. She says he's talking to lawyers about discrediting me. Did she say anything specific? No, just that I should be careful and document everything. Interesting. She ended the relationship? Yes. Last week, apparently. Then David just lost his alibi and his support system. That makes him more dangerous, but also more, isolated. Stay vigilant, Rebecca. If he contacts you, don't engage. Forward everything to me. 2 days later, the first strike came. I received an email from David's lawyer, stating that David was contesting the alimony portion of the settlement. He claimed I'd misrepresented my ability to work, and that 4 years of support was excessive given my education and work history. He's grasping at straws, Catherine said when I forwarded it to her. The settlement is signed. He can't contest it now without proving fraud or coercion, neither of which he can do. So, what's his endgame? Harassment. He wants you to know he's still fighting, still trying to hurt you. He wants you scared and off balance. I'm not scared. Good. Don't be. We'll respond through official channels and shut this down. But David wasn't finished. The next week, I received a friend request on social media from an account I didn't recognize. The profile photo was generic, the name uncommon. I almost ignored it, but something made me check the account's activity. Every post was about me. Photos of our house, taken from the street. Photos of me at the grocery store, at the gym, at a coffee shop. Someone was following me, documenting my movements, and posting them online with captions suggesting I was unstable and vindictive. David hired someone to stalk you, Janet Harper said when I showed her the account. Or he's doing it himself from a fake profile. Either way, this is harassment and possibly illegal depending on how it's framed. Can we trace who's behind it? I'm already working on it. In the meantime, make your social media completely private. Vary your routines. Be aware of your surroundings. If you see anyone following you or, taking photos, call the police immediately. I felt violated in a new way. The financial manipulation and gaslighting had been awful, but this was different. This was David trying to control my life even after the divorce, trying to make me feel unsafe in my own city, but I refused to be intimidated. Instead, I documented everything. Screenshots of every post, photos of unfamiliar cars parked near my house, times and dates when I felt I was being watched. I built a file as comprehensive as the one I'd built for the divorce, and I kept living my life. I went to job interviews. I met friends for coffee. I took a weekend trip to visit my parents and told them everything that had happened. They were shocked, angry on my behalf, and ultimately supportive. We never liked him, my mother admitted, but you seemed happy, so we kept quiet. I thought I was happy. I didn't know any better. You know better now. That's what matters. 3 weeks after the stalking started, Janet called with news. We traced the account. It's registered to an IP address that belongs to David's sister, Margaret. Margaret is stalking me. Either that, or she's letting David use her internet connection and computer to do it. Either way, we have grounds for a restraining order against both of them. Do it. The restraining orders were filed and approved within 48 hours. David and Margaret were prohibited from contacting me, coming within 500 feet of me, or posting about me on social media. The fake account disappeared that same day, but David's rage didn't. It just found new channels. He started calling my job references, telling potential employers that I was mentally unstable and had falsely accused him of abuse. When Catherine found out, she sent cease and desist letters threatening a defamation lawsuit. He tried to contest the house sale, claiming I'd forced him to agree to terms he didn't understand. The judge reviewed the settlement, saw that David had been represented by an experienced attorney, and dismissed the motion. He spread rumors to mutual friends, painting himself as the victim of a vindictive wife who'd refused to work on the marriage. Most of our friends, Once they heard my side and saw the evidence, quietly sided with me. Every attempt he made to hurt me failed, and each failure seemed to make him more desperate, more reckless. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday in early August. I was home alone, working on a marketing proposal for a potential freelance client. The house was quiet, the windows open to catch the evening breeze. Around 10:00, I heard a noise in the backyard, a scraping sound like someone moving furniture on the patio. I froze, listening. Another sound. Footsteps on the deck. My phone was in my hand immediately, dialing the police while I moved to the front of the house, away from the back. This is Rebecca Thornton at 2847 Maple Drive. Someone is in my backyard. I have a restraining order against my ex-husband, and I think it might be him. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line and stay inside. Lock yourself in a room if possible. I locked myself in the master bathroom, my heart pounding. More sounds from downstairs. A window opening. Someone was breaking in. The operator kept talking to me, keeping me calm, telling me help was coming. I heard sirens in the distance, getting closer. Then I heard David's voice. "Rebecca, I know you're here. We need to talk." He was inside my house. The man I'd been married to for 15 years, the man I'd shared a life with, was breaking into my home. "She's inside." The operator's voice was urgent now. "Officers are pulling up now. Stay where you are." I heard shouting downstairs. Police commands. David's voice, angry and defensive. "This is my house. I have a right to be here." "Sir, step outside now. Hands where we can see them." More shouting. The sound of a struggle, then silence. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, an officer knocked on the bathroom door. "Mrs. Thornton, it's Officer Rodriguez. You're safe. You can come out now." I opened the door on shaking legs. The officer was young, professional, concerned. "Your ex-husband has been arrested for violating the restraining order and breaking and entering. Do you want to press charges?" "Yes. Absolutely, yes." Downstairs, I saw David being led out in handcuffs. He looked at me as they walked him past, and for a moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear, not of the arrest or the charges, but of the realization that he'd finally gone too far, that there would be consequences he couldn't manipulate or charm his way out of. "You did this," he said, as they led him away. "You made me do this. Even now, even caught." Red-handed. He was trying to blame me. I didn't respond. I just watched them put him in the police car and drive away. Catherine arrived 30 minutes later, having been called by the police. She found me sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea with shaking hands. "Are you all right?" "I will be." He really broke in. After everything, he actually broke into my house. Because he lost control of you, and he can't stand it. Men like David see their partners as possessions. When you refuse to be possessed anymore, he escalated. What happens now? Now he faces criminal charges, breaking and entering, violating a restraining order, possibly stalking if we can prove he was behind all the social media harassment. This isn't civil court anymore, Rebecca. This is criminal. He could go to jail. The thought should have made me happy. Instead, I just felt tired. I never wanted this. I just wanted him to tell the truth and let me go. I know, but he chose this path. Every step of the way, he chose escalation over honesty. That's not your fault. Over the next few days, the story spread through our social circle. David's arrest became public record. His family, who'd defended him so vigorously, went silent. His job placed him on administrative leave pending the outcome of the criminal case. And the man who'd spent months calling me crazy and paranoid, who'd systematically destroyed my confidence and tried to steal my financial security, who'd stalked and harassed me after losing in court, was finally facing real consequences. And I was finally, truly free. I changed all the locks that weekend, installed a security system with cameras, made my house into the fortress it should have been all along. But more than that, I changed internally. The woman who'd doubted her own perceptions, who'd let herself be gaslit into questioning reality, was gone. In her place was someone harder, wiser, someone who trusted her own instincts and wouldn't let anyone make her doubt them again. My phone rang. It was the freelance client I'd been working with. "Rebecca, we've reviewed your proposal. We'd like to offer you a 6-month contract with the option to extend. Are you interested?" I looked around my house. my safe space, bought with the settlement from a man who'd tried to leave me with nothing. Yes, I said. I'm very interested. The next chapter of my life wasn't just beginning. It was already here. And this time, I was writing every word of it myself. Let's take a short pause in the story to remind you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're listening to this story from. We post new stories every day. Thank you. Let's continue. 6 months after David's arrest, I stood in my home office, looking at the wall I'd transformed into a vision board. Photos of places I wanted to visit, quotes about strength and resilience, a certificate from the digital marketing course I'd completed, and in the center, a sticky note with 3 words I'd written the day after the break-in. Trust yourself always. The freelance contract had turned into a full-time position. I was now the digital marketing director for a growing tech startup, making more money than I'd ever made before David convinced me to quit my career. My team respected me. My boss valued my input. And every morning when I woke up, I did so without the knot of anxiety that had lived in my stomach for so long. David's criminal trial had been swift, with the police reports, the violation of the restraining order, and the documented pattern of harassment. His lawyer had advised him to take a plea deal, 6 months in county jail, followed by 2 years of probation and mandatory anger management counseling. He'd also been ordered to pay restitution for my security system and therapy costs. His family had finally stopped defending him after the details of the break-in became public. Margaret had even called to apologize for her part in the harassment, though I'd declined to speak with her. Some bridges, once burned, weren't worth rebuilding. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks after his arrest. I was legally, officially, completely free. My phone rang. It was Dr. Morrison, calling for our monthly check-in session. Rebecca, how are you feeling today? Good. Really good, actually. I got promoted last week. Senior Director of Marketing. That's wonderful. Congratulations. How does it feel? Strange. Like I'm living someone else's life. The good kind of strange, though. You've come a long way from the woman who walked into my office convinced she was losing her mind. That woman feels like a stranger now. I can't believe I let him make me doubt myself for so long. Don't minimize what you experienced. Gaslighting is a form of psychological abuse, and it's designed to make you doubt your perceptions. The fact that you trusted your instincts despite months of manipulation shows incredible strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite the fear. You did that. You gathered evidence, built a case, and fought back when most people would have simply accepted the narrative they were being fed. After the call, I made myself lunch and ate it on the back deck that David had tried to break through. The space felt different now, reclaimed. I'd had it refinished. Added new furniture, planted a garden. The place where he'd tried to intimidate me was now my favorite spot to read on Sunday mornings. That afternoon, I met Catherine for coffee. We'd stayed in touch even after the case concluded, developing an unexpected friendship. You look happy, she said, as I sat down. I am. Is that allowed? More than allowed. Essential. You've earned this happiness, Rebecca. Don't let anyone, including yourself, make you feel guilty about it. Sometimes I think about how different things could have been if I'd confronted him that first night, if I'd trusted my instincts immediately instead of letting him convince me I was paranoid. And sometimes I think about how many women stay in situations like yours because they don't have the resources or support to leave. You had the courage to investigate, the intelligence to document, and the strength to fight. That's rare. I had help. From you, from Janet, from Dr. Morrison. I couldn't have done it alone. Maybe not. But you had to make the choice to reach out. That was all you. We talked for another hour. About work, and life, and the strange aftermath of surviving something designed to destroy you. When we parted ways, Catherine hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you. And I'm glad you're building a life that makes you happy. That evening, I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I went through the box of photographs from my marriage, the ones I'd thrown in the garage and hadn't looked at since. There we were on our wedding day, young and hopeful, on vacations in places I'd forgotten about, at parties with friends who'd slowly disappeared as David isolated me, at family gatherings where everyone smiled for the camera, while tensions simmered underneath. I looked at my face in those photos, trying to see what I'd missed. The signs of unhappiness, the forced smiles, the gradual dimming of something essential. But mostly, I just saw a woman who'd loved someone and believed in the future they were. Building together. That woman hadn't been stupid or weak. She'd been human, and she'd survived something designed to break her. I kept a few photos, the ones from early in our relationship before things turned dark. Not because I wanted to remember David, but because I wanted to remember myself. The woman I'd been before I learned that love could be weaponized. The woman I was becoming again, but wiser this time. The rest, I threw away. A week later, I ran into someone unexpected at the grocery store. It was Sarah, the wife of David's colleague who'd inadvertently tipped me off about his lies all those months ago. "Rebecca, I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk to me." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because of everything with David. His whole office has been talking about what happened. Some people are saying you trapped him, that you were vindictive and cruel." I felt the old anger rise, then let it go. "What do you think?" "I think David always seemed a little too perfect, a little too controlled. And I think men who try that hard to appear perfect are usually hiding something." She paused. "I also think you're incredibly brave. When I mentioned that canceled meeting and he made you feel crazy for questioning him, I felt terrible afterward. I almost called you to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. You told the truth. That's all I needed. Still, I'm sorry, and I'm glad you're okay. You look good, Rebecca. Really good. I feel good. Better than I have in years." We exchanged numbers and made vague plans to get coffee. I didn't know if we'd actually follow through, but it felt good to have the option, to be making connections on my own terms, without worrying about how David would react or what he'd think. That weekend, I did something I'd been planning for months. I booked a trip to Italy, the vacation I'd always wanted to take, but David had always found reasons to postpone. 2 weeks in Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. Just me, with no one to answer to and no one to accommodate. When I told my mother, she cried, "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You've taken something terrible and turned it into a new beginning." It didn't feel like a beginning for a long time. It felt like an ending. Sometimes endings and beginnings are the same thing. You had to end who you were to become who you are. The wisdom in that stayed with me. I'd spent so much time mourning the marriage I thought I had, the future I thought we were building. But that future had been built on lies. The real gift wasn't what I'd lost. It was what I'd gained. Clarity, strength, and the unshakable knowledge that I could trust myself. A month before my Italy trip, I received an unexpected email. It was from Melissa Torres. "Rebecca, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know that I testified at David's trial. I told them everything about the affair, about his lies, about how he manipulated both of us. I know it doesn't undo the harm I caused, but I hope it helps somehow. I also want you to know that watching you fight back changed something in me. I'm in therapy now, working on understanding why I made the choices I made, why I believed someone who was so clearly lying. I hope you're doing well. You deserve every happiness. Melissa." I read it 3 times, feeling complicated emotions I couldn't quite name. Anger, because she'd been complicit in David's deception. Gratitude, because her testimony had helped convict him. And something else, something closer to understanding. We'd both been fooled by the same man. The difference was that I'd fought back, and she'd helped me do it, even if it came late. I didn't respond to the email, but I didn't delete it either. It sat in my inbox as a reminder that people were complex, that harm and healing could coexist, that forgiveness didn't always mean reconciliation. The week before my trip, my divorce lawyer called with final news about the settlement. "The house sale is complete. The proceeds have been deposited into your account. The alimony payments are on schedule, and David has made no further attempts to contest or modify the agreement. Because he's in jail. That certainly helps. But also because he knows that any further action will result in additional criminal charges. He's finally learned that you're not someone he can manipulate or intimidate. It only took him 15 years. Catherine laughed. Better late than never. Rebecca, I want you to know something. In 20 years of practicing family law, I've seen hundreds of cases like yours. Most of them don't end with the victim taking control of the narrative the way you did. Most people either stay trapped in the abuse or leave with nothing because they're too broken to fight. You did neither. You documented, you strategized, you fought smart, and you won. It doesn't always feel like winning, because healing isn't linear. You're allowed to feel grief and anger and confusion even while you're building a better life. Those feelings don't cancel out your victory. They're part of it. The morning I left for Italy, I stood in my house one last time before calling the car to the airport. This house, which had held so much pain and deception, had become something else, a symbol of survival, a proof of concept that I could build a life on my own terms. In Rome, I walked through ancient ruins and thought about impermanence. In Florence, I stood in front of great art and remembered that beautiful things often came from difficult circumstances. In Positano, I sat on a terrace overlooking the sea and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was free, and that freedom felt like coming home to myself. On the flight back to Denver, I wrote in the journal I'd started keeping during therapy, pages and pages about the past year, about everything I'd learned, about who I was becoming. And on the last page, I wrote, I spent 6 months being called crazy and paranoid. I spent 6 months doubting my own reality, questioning my own perceptions, wondering if I was the problem. And then I stopped questioning and started acting. I gathered evidence. I built a case. I trusted myself. And when the time came, I showed him the photographs, the recordings, the financial documents. I showed him that I'd been right all along, that I wasn't crazy or paranoid. I was awake. And being awake, it turned out, was the most powerful thing I could be. When I got home, my house felt different. Not, because anything had changed physically, but because I had changed. The woman who'd lived here in fear and confusion was gone. In her place was someone who knew her own worth, who trusted her own instincts, who would never again let anyone make her doubt her own reality. I hung a new piece of art in the entryway. It was a quote I'd found in Florence. The greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. I'd fallen. I'd been pushed. I'd been systematically torn down by someone who claimed to love me, but I'd risen, and I was still rising. My life wasn't perfect. I still had moments of anger, flashes of betrayal, days when the weight of what David had done felt heavy, but those moments were becoming rarer, replaced by new experiences, new achievements, new reasons to be proud of who I was becoming. I'd survived gaslighting, financial, abuse, stalking, and a home invasion. I'd faced down a man who tried to destroy me and emerged stronger for it. And every morning when I woke up in my house, in my bed, in my life that I'd built from the ashes of a marriage designed to consume me, I remembered the most important lesson I'd learned. Trust yourself always, even when someone you love tells you you're wrong, even when the whole world seems to question your reality. Especially then, because I'd been right all along, and that knowledge, that unshakable certainty in my own perceptions, was the gift David had inadvertently given me by trying so hard to take it away. He'd called me crazy and paranoid until I showed him the truth, and the truth had set me free.